Sean Smith here at the University of Kansas, also part of the CIDDL team, although I don't have my background behind me. Hey, Lynn from Providence College, my undergraduate. That's Harkins Hall behind her, a beautiful building.
Yes.
Uh, Samantha Goldman and I are going to kind of facilitate is funded out of the U.S. Department of Education. It's a Stepping Up project. And for those unfamiliar with Stepping Up projects, they've been funding for a variety of innovative implementation for years. And ours is focused in on the challenge. And I'm going to offer the challenge and what we've been trying to solve. And then Sam's going to share her screen and kind of give you a taste of it and then offer time for questions and then allow all ourselves to get back to our busy days. Writing, of course, we know is a primary way throughout our educational experience, not only at middle school and high school, but also post-secondary, if not upper elementary, where we're asking students to demonstrate what they know. And we do it in narrative, generative, argumentative, informative, genres, etc. And so with that, we saw this as a challenge years ago. And we started to unpack this, first of all, and trying to get strategies supported with teachers that we know good strategies that work, good practices that work. And we try to meld those or combine those with good technologies. And a number of innovations, the old innovations of text-to-speech and word prediction that still work quite well, and so many other things, interactive graphic organizers. And what we found were educators, one said to us, and they still say to us, we don't have time for writing, we don't teach writing, but most importantly, we don't have the data behind the writing. And so, how do we understand what's happening to be able to then align it to the strategy or to the technology? And we're hearing this up at the secondary level, excuse me, post-secondary level as well. Not only in terms of students trying to demonstrate what they know in their teacher education courses, but also in teacher education courses trying to facilitate the writing process and to give guidance in terms of scoring, et cetera. And one of the primary things we know from the literature is that if we do offer opportunities for writers, particularly at the middle high school level, but also here in the post-secondary, if we give them feedback, regular feedback, very directed feedback, we give it on informative text particularly, because that's generally at the middle secondary level, post-secondary level is what we're measuring on, we will see promise, we'll see outcomes. And so we've tried to solve this over the years by creating tools that automatically score students' writing. An AI score takes AI, and well, Sam will kind of share the rest of the story with us in terms of what we've been creating and what we're now beginning to implement with schools as we speak. So take it away, Samantha.
I'm Samantha Goldman, and I get the pleasure of sharing AI score with you all. So first of all, let's do this part. All right, y'all can see that?
Yes.
Great. And one more thing. Okay, so this is the teacher dashboard, and I'm going to walk you through it after we do a demo on the student side. So we're going to pop in as a student. And you'll see on the student side, it has the writing assignments the student has to complete, the previous writings, and the feedback that they've gotten. This is a demo, so there's a lot of like extraneous data in here that wouldn't normally be on the new writing assignment. But students go in, they can either create a writing assignment or their teachers can push one out to them. So for the sake of the demo, we're going to create one.
Hey, here's a quick reminder of
And they're
what to
given a
do.
1-minute video of instructions for 38 seconds.
You'll get 1 minute to plan. Use the notes box however you want. Then, you'll have 9 minutes to write, with your notes still
And we
visible.
can unpack why 1 minute, we can
After
unpack
that,
why
you'll
nine
get
minutes.
instant
So there's a lot of
feedback and a
reasons
chance to
behind this. Of course, it's
revise.
all based on the literature and experts in the
And if you
field.
need help,
Anyways, happy
Oscar
to
is
follow
there
up
to
on that.
support you. Remember, this isn't about getting a grade, it's about growing as a writer.
Then they're given 1 minute to plan. They have the prompt up here. It will do text to speech as well. And they have a little counter. For the sake of the demo, we can generate.
And the planning notes was very integral to what teachers were seeing are their students doing it as they prepared for writing, scored writing. They were taking notes off to the side on things that they had actually learned. So we've embedded that now into the system.
Which then allows teachers to see what's going on. Oftentimes, notes don't make it back to teachers, especially when we're writing on the computer. After that 1 minute, they then have that 9-minute writing period. During both the planning period and the writing period, they have access to Oscar, our on-screen assistant. Oscar will help them answer the prompt, but won't give them the answer itself. So they can ask Oscar for, give me a sentence starter. And he'll be like, okay, well, let's start. My favorite place to visit is, and they can actually copy it and paste it in. But he also will not get off track. I was doing a demo a couple weeks ago and someone asked if Oscar would tell a joke. Oscar will not tell a joke. Oscar will not do anything that's going to veer off the path of the writing proficiency.
And Sam,
So
can I offer
yeah,
additional comments just for those who are probably asking, do you need to use Oscar? No, Oscar actually can be invisible to the student, not used. But also, oh gosh, when my students write, they use Grammarly, or they'll use Read Write, or they'll use Co-Writer. Yes, 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 they can turn those on and use it over. This is operating within a browser, so whatever they typically use. And it was designed in that manner for teachers to be able to facilitate what other students normally do.
yeah. So we can generate the writing, and after the 9 minutes, I didn't generate anything. Hold on. My favorite place to visit is didn't generate because I had already written something. The park. Swings, slides are fun. I like going. Okay. And then when they're all
Nice job
done,
finishing your draft.
it'll give
Before
them
you
a
see your
video about what
feedback,
feedback
here's
is.
something important to remember. Writing is a process. Even famous authors revise their work. J.K. Rowling, who wrote Harry Potter, and Jason Reynolds, the author of Ghost, rewrote and revised every chapter of their books to give readers the best story. Why? Because writing is about growth. Every draft is a chance to improve. Now it's time to see how you can make your writing even better. You'll get feedback in 4 areas. Content, how clear and well supported your ideas are. Organization, how your writing flows. Style, your sentence variety and word choice. And your overall writing. Click through each section to see what stood out and where you can take your writing further. You're not being graded. You're growing. Every revision helps you become a stronger writer.
And then they get their feedback, which comes overall. It'll tell them what they did well and what they need to improve on, and it'll give them specific actionable feedback. So try writing complete sentences, add more details to your writing, and it'll do that across all the areas. And again, it has that embedded speech to text, text to speech component. When they're done, now we'll flip over to the teacher side. On the teacher side, the teacher has access to all of the student videos should they want to play them more. We found that having those instructions in video form was helpful at having the students actually watch them. And we also wanted to make sure that we were reiterating, we're not grading, we are looking at feedback and how we can improve writing outcomes. It also has our rubric, which we designed with other writing experts, and information and videos about progress monitoring and data walks, and links to other resources that we have. So if we go over to assignments and we pull up this assignment, which is AI generated data, we can see that the students on the side, their names are color coded based on their score on the rubric. So it's up to 18 points that they can get. So we can automatically see nice and clearly who did what. We also have a graph showing how our students did across the entire rubric. We can look at score distribution. So how did they do in their writing in this way? We can click on it and it'll actually take us to their score. And then we're collecting data on if the feedback is acceptable or not. So teachers would go in and either say, yes, this is good feedback, or no, it is not. In addition to the assignment data, we also have data overall. So we can look at scores across the entire class for every assignment they've gotten. So the red would be their content, yellow is organization, green is style, and the blue dot represents that overall. Again, these are AI generated data, which is why sometimes they look a little funky. We can also pull in to, like we saw a minute ago, the individual scores for that assignment. or we can pull into a student and see the student's growth over time with the student's scores. And that is a very quick demo of our tool AI Score. Anything to add, Sean?
Well, I do. I want to reinforce a few things, and I know we're preaching to the choir in a way, but so we've just shared with you something that's targeted for middle secondary use. From a teacher education use, I want to reinforce so that we can certainly unpack that. But from teacher education use, there's several things that are there that are offering opportunities for reinforcement, well, introduction, but also reinforcement. One, this whole idea of progress monitoring when it comes to writing. What does that look like? And that's where, as you just saw with the visualization, and of course that writing sample is very brief. It doesn't represent 9 minutes, so you have much richer data. But being able to understand how one would score, how that type of feedback would be critical, to be able to unpack that and using AI to be able to facilitate that. The other aspect of that as well is the fact that the rubric, which we haven't mentioned, beyond the fact that we have it, it's taken four, is it, Samantha? Do we end up with four or five? Four primary use, ones nationally as well as one here in the state of Kansas, that was then analyzed across expert writers to come up with this valid and reliable rubric. So it's another way of looking at how to score writing. So that's another thing that we have there on the website for the students to be able to unpack and to learn more about scoring writing, which Samantha just completed her dissertation, elements of some of her work as indicating the fact that in teacher education, we're not preparing our special educators from not only understanding how to teach writing, but how to assess writing. So that's packed in there. And then something we don't have time for, but it's aligned with this is, okay, now what do we do? We have this data, what do we do? We've had the writingclassroom.org. It's there, but we're revising it significantly as we speak. And that's houses currently, but it's being updated to house a tremendous library of strategies, not only our SRSD, et cetera, but aligned with technology to then share with the teachers to say, okay, your data says the following, what do we do? Here's a solution over in writingclassroom.com. So from a teacher ed perspective, it's trying to inform teachers, both pre and in service, then what to do. So AI is just a part of it, but increasingly trying to illustrate how AI as a part of it can then help with that overall assessment and of course the writing process. So Angelica and Jamie, we didn't want to go beyond that normal confines, but we're happy to talk more, show more, answer any questions. We'll be quiet for a moment or two.
This is great. Thank you so much for sharing this. Let's stop here and see if we have any questions that anyone would like to ask while we are recording.
Sean, how are you folks making certain that the AI is learning from the writing practice of the writing, especially of struggling writers? So we're out there now having the system used as much as possible. So as much writing, we've already shared hundreds of samples, if not well into the thousands, and we're adding more and more as we speak to have the system score more and more and more to see struggling writing samples to further understand and then use that within its scoring process.
Great. All right.
I think something else, oops, sorry.
No.
I was going to say something else that's unique is our developers worked really hard to ensure privacy. And so on the research end, we get, how did you know that's what I was going to say?
I don't know. I don't know. That was the question I had.
We, as like the research team, have no identifiable data. So everything that we see is numbers and words. We have no idea who it came from, what school it came from, or any of that identifiable data, which means that the data is kept in the school. What's your question? What other steps should schools take to keep privacy, to keep student information safe when using AI tools? I think, go for it, Sean.
Well, I'll start with the following. The way we did it was we were very purposeful with learning management systems that already have some of that structure in place. Not already, they have that structure in place. So for example, Google Classroom and Canvas are the two. Right now, Google Classroom is the primary entry point to AI Score. So if a school's not using Google Classroom, they're not really going to use AI Score. We're updating it to Canvas as well. And so that structure and already in terms of how data is protected there is how we're then taking advantage of that system to do that protection. But Sam, you can speak to it more globally in terms of that question.
Yeah, I think something else that we're building in, and it's not there yet, but it's one of the resources that we're adding in is that AI literacy piece. How do you have that conversation with students about what you do and do not put in an AI. And even though our system is closed, we still want students to have responsible use. And we still want to make sure that the students understand, one, Oscar is not a real human, right? Because that's another thing is Oscar's a chatbot. So making sure they understand that piece. We're also building in some safety components for Oscar to make sure that teachers can see what goes into him. Sorry, it's hard when he has a name to not call him a he. But I think that it's important to be cautious about where student data goes. One of the schools we're working with, their entire school district no longer uses names on anything they put online. They have numbers for every student. And so automatically everything that goes online is anonymized because it's like you're either number 1 or you're number 7, but those numbers are relative to just that student at that school. It's not their ID number, it's just a random number that they're given. And I thought that was like brilliant to help solve that data privacy question.
And the other thing to answer that question is one, Samantha and I are not experts in this area of, for example, what steps should schools take to keep student information safe when using AI. That's not an area of expertise of ours. That's not what we're trying to be proponents of other right now. My goodness, I think Dr. Deeker, Dr. Basham, Dr. Marino, and others on this call probably could offer much more. What we've done, though, is we've developed in that manner in terms of, we're knowledgeable enough in terms of, like, for example, using learning management systems, not having access to that data, but also then what we're trying to create on the other side that Samantha just mentioned, videos and other supports, because we know now we're in the database data business with AI. Well, we need to keep teachers informed about what to be concerned about, and we need to keep students informed, and we need to keep parents informed. And so we're creating a number of resources that is from information, of course, that's out there and trying to put it in a very consumable format so they understand and appreciate, yes, this is protected here, but make sure as you're going forward. So we feel we're being somewhat responsible there, but that's not our a primary area of, we are not the experts on that, and we appreciate that, but we're trying to be at least knowledgeable enough in terms of informative enough to allow folks to understand and appreciate the fact that, okay, you have data, this is protected here, but in the bigger scheme, kind of similar to your question, Angelica, these are some things to consider. And as we grow in that area, we'll also be pushing out to other resources where folks are covering this much more thoroughly, like CIDDL, so that folks can get that information and go down that pathway in a much more deeper way. So if that helps. So
Great. I'm going to ask one more question and then I'll turn off the recording. What supports like training or clear guidance do teachers need to use AI score or similar tools effectively in their classroom?
Samantha, do you want to take that?
So we work with a really amazing team of developers, and the whole goal of AI score is they don't. It's designed to basically need as little instruction from outside sources to use it as possible. So that means making the system really easy to figure out. We're also embedding in videos of how do you use the different components so that a teacher could actually go in and use it without extensive training. The goal is not to make it something that's really difficult to use. The goal is to make it something that a teacher can use for 15 minutes twice a week, or I'm sorry, 15 minutes every other week and see gains in their student writing rather than, needing 15 hours of training to learn how to use it.
And to answer the question in the chat, and let me back up for just a moment to understand. So answer the question in the chat. Our focus has been on trying to provide data to teachers in a meaningful manner so that then they can make decisions in terms of what to do with students' writing, and then the opportunities to provide writing, the supports to provide writing, particularly for struggling learners and those with disabilities. So, for example, something we didn't mention is the fact we have a library of prompts, well over 100. They're all informative right now. Well, we have several hundred in other genres. And they're all very content neutral. So therefore, the prompt is not measuring your knowledge, it's measuring your ability to write. It's at a third grade reading level in a very purposeful manner because of the average graduating at an elementary level, what, fourth or fifth grade high school graduate. In terms of when you look at the averages, they are not readers at the level we'd like them to be. So those are considerations. But the one area we are offering opportunities in terms of the question in the chat about students writing independently is with the feedback. So we're suggesting every 2 weeks, offer a prompt, write, score. But with Oscar and the opportunity of getting feedback, they can then respond to that feedback. Samantha, feel free to follow up on that in response to what we're hoping they do between those a 2-week assessment.
Yeah. So the next phase is being developed where they can actually go in and revise what they did. So that one prompt that they wrote is actually going to have time to be improved based on that feedback. As far as independent of a classroom assignment, students have the ability to go in and create and practice whenever they want to. And even students who are not in our schools that are using it have the ability to have an account through, all they need is a Google access.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And they can get in and use it on their own. With, a parent could work with them for that as well. But it is independent writing the assessment piece with Oscar, obviously. But I think that answered the question.
Yeah. But please understand it was created for assessment purposes, but in that
Mhm.
process of assessment, they will have windows to be able to write independently with the assessment following up as well. But it's all based on trying to get data and feedback during that feedback process. Feedback to students during that data process.
All right. Thank you so much. We really, really appreciate you coming and presenting today
Thanks
for
for
our
having us.
office hours.
Yeah.
Thank you.